This podcast is brought to you by the Disabled But Not Really Foundation, a local Kansas City nonprofit organization that pushes to instill a physical limitless mindset that breeds courage, confidence, and competence within the disabled community. You can follow and support Disabled But Not Really on social media or go visit their website at disabledbutnotreally.org. Their work and their mission is to really impact communities and make more people understand the benefits of inclusivity.
Starting in 5, Marissa. There we go. Hi, everyone. April Jackson here. So happy to be with you guys. Wes is not in his usual spot, a little space motif behind him. And I'm actually not in my usual spot. We've been home for so long now. That's kind of true. We're outside, we're playing. So I am in the Open Up Studios in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, actually in a town called Lawrenceville, which Sadrina is our guest. Sadrina Jalal, yes. And Sadrina and I have known each other for so long. Oh, we met in Lawrenceville, Georgia. So we're really, really excited to have you all here. Sadrina Jalal is our guest, and she is out of Atlanta, Georgia. And we would be so happy if you guys would indulge us for a moment. Wes and I are going to share a little poem, which some of you may have heard when you were on with us. Was it last month or it was the month before last? Time just keeps going. Yes, we want to share a little I am, and then we put Sadrina on the spot. She's so good and flexible that it will be a segue into her introducing herself personally, and then sharing what she does. So I shall begin. This is the I Am poem, which is adapted from Aida Cuadrado Bosso, which she is a powerhouse, beautiful woman, Puerto Ricana American out of Michigan. And we will put that link up for you guys so you could go to Calling It Up and share. But I am the descendant of escaped slave Vesta Butler. I am the descendant of Lillian, Bennett, Olga, and William through Gail and Bill. Strong women, strong men. Alabama and Kentucky run in my veins. But you know, I'm the sweet smell of the California breeze, the ocean breeze where we landed. I'm the smell of homemade cookies coming out of the kitchen. I am the sound of laughter, of jazz, of conscious rap music, of the ocean waves. I am from Venice Boulevard and Crenshaw Boulevard, where they intersect, Los Angeles. I am from Atlanta and now Pittsburgh. I know that our most important asset is us as human beings, essential to being worthy of all humanity. I know that when we are fully in ourselves, we are empowered, we are strong, we are beautiful, we are of strength, we are of courage. I know this to be true. I dream of a world of peace. I bring with me compassion, belief. I bring with me love. I hear the sounds of nature. I hear the sounds of love. I hear the sounds of the breeze that speaks so organically to what is real in life. I stand for love and freedom. I have to try to continue to raise us up. I am April Nicole.
Hey, talk about it. Oh, all right. I'm going to jump in and do mine. That was great, April. I just want to tell you I love it. Yeah. See the vibe already? We already setting the tone. I am. Yeah. So I am the descendants of the free men before slavery, the workers in the kitchen, and the visionaries of the Underground Railroad. I am the smell of Rose's hot cakes on the stove and Jetta's sweet potato pot during Thanksgiving. The sound of water flowing down the river with a few hints of urban hip hop mixed with the vibes of Afro beats. I am from the east side of Kansas City, Missouri, where the lights barely shine. I know that Black men are learning the power of self-love. I dream of unity within the Black community. I bring with me a heart full of empathy. I hear Nipsey Hussle's music flowing through the wind. I stand for empowerment within the Black community and all that I represent. I try to lead with love and understanding that life is a marathon. We're just going through the laps. I am the representation I couldn't find.
Mm.
Breaker of my own mental restraints, free enough to own my name, Wesley Hamilton. Hey.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Thank you for sharing that, Wes. Satrina, let the spirit move you in any way.
Oh my gracious, how do I come after that? Wow, that's so powerful and so beautiful. And I'm excited to sit with that and really, really come up with my I am. But I will say that I am the descendant of civil rights advocate, activist, and attorney, Sage Brown. I am a descendant of a decorated soldier, 2 Purple Hearts. I am the descendant of an educator. I am the descendant of a domestic worker. I am the descendant of a sex worker. I am the descendant of so many incredible women who found a way out of no way, who created opportunities for their families, through their communities, and built legacy for me and my children. I am a mom of 3 incredible and creative children who feel very comfortable moving through this world as they see fit. I am a lover of all things Southern, macaroni and cheese, sweet potato pie, pralines. I am a friend. I am a sister. I am a lover. I am a fighter. I am Sadrina Jalal.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, Sadrina. I'm going to share the template with you, Sadrina, so that you can see it. And I would love if you want to like formally write it out and you would allow us to share it. I would love to be able to share that. But I'm so happy that you just introduced yourself and your power to everyone, because I've known this. And yeah, you've definitely spoken truth. And I appreciate hearing all of that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
You know, it's just the power that we can speak into ourselves. And we learned that when we heard it the first time. And at least for me, I feel like it's necessary for us to make sure that we speak those things and understand where we come from, understand the fight of so many, and understand the legacy that we're creating now, right? And so, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And that speaks to kind of what we're talking about today. We are going to probably extend this conversation. Karis from Gift cannot attend today due to some familial complications that are going on with her son. So we'll send out some good vibes to her. But I think actually this beautiful, like Wes, you suggested even that we tap into who we are, because it was in talking with Sadrina that it was enlightening to me to hear, like, April, did you know that Black Americans are number 1 in giving? Like, Black Americans give more than anyone else. And I was like, girl, really? And and when that hit me, I sat and thought about how much I've given, and we came across some resources which we'll share. Like, I read an article and I thought about how much, like, I used to tithe to the church. I used to tithe a whole lot of money to the church. And in other areas we give. And so as Giving Tuesday is coming up on November 3rd, I think it's the 30th, we want to really put ourselves out there to let people know that when you are giving, you're not giving to a lot of people who, when they may be of need, and there are definite organizations that are filling in gaps that shouldn't be there in our society. But understand the stereotype of just these no good, lazy, who can't take care of themselves and not doing anything for themselves. That's just a stereotype. We are trying to level up, and this is what we are doing to bring equity into our communities. And so I want to pass it to Sadrina. So one, you can share what you do professionally and really let's springboard into the conversation.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I want to say that it's more than a stereotype. It's a false narrative. It's a false narrative that has been intentionally created. The system is doing exactly what it's designed to do, what it was created to do. So thank you, April, for kind of setting that tone. So I do a couple of things. My primary gig, if you will, is I'm the senior director for community innovation at the Center for Civic Innovation in Atlanta. And largely our organization is kind of divided into two different arms currently. We have the civic engagement part, and they really focus on local elections and making sure that individuals are aware of what's happening in their community and are tapped into opportunities to get to know candidates, to support legislation and funding for the specific needs of their own communities. On my side, on the community innovation side, we support entrepreneurs and change makers, both nonprofit and social enterprise organizations and entities that are really focused on creative and innovative ways to solve problems. And one of the things that we've been paying very close attention to, we've had about 100 folks come through one of the programs that I run, our fellowship program, and we see the challenges that they face, really just accessing resources to build capacity, to be able to fund the work, to be able to hire folks to expand the work. And we initially our focus was to make sure that they had all of their documentation in order. They had their, nonprofit status, if that's what was needed, a strong board of directors, and, strategic planning that would demonstrate. So it was really just about proving the value, which is, in my opinion, really the wrong way to look at this. But that's what we did. And you would think, okay, we do all the right things. We do what the system tells us to do, and funding should flow. And it just doesn't happen like that for Black folks, and specifically not for Black women. After COVID, we started looking, we had data, we were able to follow how giving took place in Atlanta and how it was distributed, who was doing the work versus who was receiving funding for the work. And it was, really disturbing to know that we had, these incredible organizations that were struggling to get money that was specifically set aside for this purpose. Mm-hmm. So it was an opportunity to see that it's not that the money isn't available. It's not that these organizations are not prepared to receive it. It's that it's really, it's philanthropy doesn't trust Black women. And I mean, it is what it is. And it doesn't trust us, not even to do work in our own communities. And that's very jarring, but it's truth. So yeah, that's how we got where we are.
Whew. I felt so heavy.
Yeah.
That whole thing of trust, is key. I feel like you said, when you looked at the data and you teased it apart, it wasn't Black women. And I suffice it to say, it's probably like Wes's organization, Disabled But Not Really. He's been on boots on the ground, wheels on the ground, literally both, for a long time. And Sadrina, I've been working, we just talked about it, in that space of helping nonprofits, one, build their leadership, their professional capacity. Because a lot of people, I think, who go into these spaces, they have a desire, a dream, a hope, and some experience with what the issue is. But then to play the game, you have to really have a business. You have to be astute in business. You have to be astute in philanthropy. And there's so many layers to it. It's like you said, having to prove your value. And that's, I think, kind of disheartening.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, definitely. I mean, in philanthropy is bad because you have to prove it. So many other people don't prove it. And I'd be, I like how you said, philanthropy doesn't really just doesn't welcome Black women, you know. And I think about it as a Black man with a nonprofit organization serving a community that is one of the largest minority groups in the world. And within that, the intersections speak a lot of our communities. But when you think of disability, a lot of white-led organizations are the ones that receive funding. And last year with George Floyd and the situations that happened with that, of course, a lot of people start taking accountability. But what happened was it was now at that point of so many people talking about Black people's mental health, talking about, you know, the disparities in our communities, whether it was, you know, from food and health to any wellness, right? Like I think that's what me and April jumped on. But what we found was that it's so much fun in going to these things, but it's serving communities outside of ours, you know, but in their language is geared to our communities, you know, and so that's where the it's been, for me, last year was an eye-opener to have companies take accountability and say that they have been providing all this funding for these organizations that don't serve everybody, you know. And I think that when you think of leadership, nonprofit organizations lead a lot of things in this world, you know, just a lot of different causes, a lot of initiatives. People are putting their money into it. So it's very disheartening sometimes. Like for me, I just grind, right? Like I just grind. I know what I'm trying to do. I know how to serve, and I know where I came from. So I know that I didn't need much to do what I needed to do. So that's kind of like my mentality. But then it's also at that point where we just, you know, and whoever's listening, just kind of just wanting people to be aware that, you know, we might be the ones that provide the most money or, you know, and support and resources when it comes to giving, you know, as a Black community. We have women that are very powerful in a lot of positions, but might not get a lot of positions when it comes to giving. And what I'm getting to is just that we're such a powerful force that if we engage into philanthropy a little bit more, we will actually do more value for our communities. Because there are a lot of organizations right now that are saying that they're bringing value to our communities, but not. They're actually breaking down our communities. You know, it's like, you know, I always tell people when I think about philanthropy, when I think about disabled, but not really. You know, we haven't went out for a lot of grants and things, but that's because a lot of things are based on a medical and charity model. You know, I don't want people with disabilities to ask for your help the rest of their life. You know what I mean? So my motto is that I'm helping them become more independent, self-sufficient, and being able to own their own life. But the motto in society, and of course, when you think of disability, it's a lot of differences within our community. So I'm very particular with the physical disabilities that I'm talking about. But at the same time, the whole model has been created where that there's so much funding going into us supposed to live an independent life or some type of lifestyle. But what's happening is that it's cycling back around and people are more confined to four walls in their home. You know, the accessibility in society is not there. So there's a lot of funding going into the development of people trying to be rehab or whatever. There's not enough funding going into the barriers in society, right? So then you go back and then you put people back in a hole. And it's the same way with Black people and organizations. And you're saying you're serving these communities, but you're scared to go into them. So I just wanted to add that because, you know, we want to, because it is, for anyone watching, this is what we do. This is what we love. But just be understanding that these are the things that we see, and these are the changes that we're wanting to make too. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out, and y'all can kind of add into that. But yeah.
There's a comment on there is a disconnect. And Sadrina, when you guys did your research and when you're also just having discussions around it, where do you see the disconnect?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So first of all, the research in and of itself, I think I want people to understand was and remains very trauma inducing because it's so much research that indicates the imbalance of power, and again, the intentionality around that. What we learned, and so let me just share that we started digging into this in October, well, really maybe June, July of 2020. Again, as we saw funding come out from the pandemic, but we just kept going deeper and deeper. We initially had a conversation with Black women who work in philanthropy. So they work because we were like, first of all, we know that there's representation in these funding institutions, but representation meaning that there are Black women that work in these spaces. Why are they not feeling empowered, to really be able to give this money out? So that was the first layer of conversation, is understanding that a lot of times, their positions are performative and they don't really have power to, execute and move dollars around. The other thing that we realized is that similarly, when it comes to the organizational structure in some of these nonprofits, very rarely do you have a Black executive director who started an organization that is able to amass a board of directors that is out fundraising and speaking and working on behalf of the organization. And that's really what is necessary to build, is those relationships. It's that networking, it's knowing people. You can fill out grants. It takes an average of 200 hours to fill out the standard grant application. And, you can do that all day long, but it's those relationships we know historically that make the difference between getting funded and not getting funded. It's the conversations, the socializing with the folks that are making those decisions. So I think, what we decided at my organization at CCI was to collect, after we talked, we did our research. And we talked to folks in philanthropy to see, kind of how their arms are tied. And then we collected a group of Black women leaders and consultants that work with leaders and who understand how this game is played. And we put together a set of recommendations for philanthropy. And the first thing that we said was that philanthropy needed to acknowledge and atone for the way they have alienated and isolated Black folks from the opportunity to build and sustain their organizations. And that's huge because, without us really acknowledging the harm that's been caused, it's very hard for us to change, the behavior. So there's a lot of other things that come behind that, but really understanding and recognizing and stating kind of the complicitness that you as an individual or an entity has had in the difficulty for Black folks to receive funding is super important. It's an important start.
You have, is it a list? Am I right? Was it a list of 7 recommendations?
We have 5, but we could have come up with 500. But
okay. I knew there was a list, and I remember you talking about it the other day. You touched on some real key things that stood out to me. One, building that board, and I've been working with organizations on their board genesis, and this is where I personally see a disconnect. So I have one group. They're very grassroots. They have this dream, they have this desire to build this organization, but then they're sacrificing themselves. So they're doing all of this work. They're not getting their own value. They're broke. They've suffered mental health. They've argued with each other. There's been so much contention that they're just battle fatigued. And so then they're like, I just have to get a job. Then 2, they want to serve the community. And so they want to bring people on who are affluent, who have good networking skills, good fundraising skills. But then there's a disconnect because they don't understand or recognize what the needs are in the community. They don't identify with the community. And I've had some people, they're working with a white male who's older and rich, and yet they're working in an urban setting, and they're kind of the in between. So they come from these urban settings, they've been educated, and so now they are working, but then they were headbutting with this main funder, and so they're trying to bring people onto their board to help serve the community that they're working with. But then those persons might not have the networking skills. It's a talent to go out and talk with people and hobnob and network and build relationships. So I think thanks for that. That's a good disconnect.
No, I just want to kind of share this because, if people don't know, when I started my nonprofit, when I started Disabled Not Really, I did it in a hospital bed. Literally changed the trajectory of my life. Had 6 weeks to heal. Started this nonprofit. Wasn't aware of it. I'm a big avid reader. I talk about reading all the time. My very first audio book I had was How to Start a Nonprofit, right? Like I literally went in to self-teach myself on the things that I needed to do that brought value. I guess my point is just that going through those processes, right? Like going through like developing and not knowing. I remember the moment I said, I gotta go out to my city and let them know that what I believe in is real. And I found myself, I'm from the streets, I get shot, I'm paralyzed. I'm literally still battling the old me, but trying to make a difference in life and to other people. But going into those rooms, it was very uncomfortable trying to share a vision when people had their own perception of me already.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, of course, I still pushed through and we've made some amazing accomplishments, right? But at the same time, it was very intimidating for me to come in and want to serve and tell people I'm trying to serve when they thought I needed the person that needed the service.
Mm. Oh,
you know what I mean?
Powerful right there.
Yes.
And so when I tell people, like, a lot of things aren't so Black led, a lot of things aren't even disabled led, right? Like, and so I represent two communities where people think I need the service and all their money is going into serving me. So why would I be the one to come in and be like, oh, I'm creating this? And so it was a lot of back and forth for people really not truly believing, because it was like, well, you're out here trying to do this, but my mission is to help you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because my perception is that you need the help.
Right.
And it started to shift the conversation.
Yeah.
Because once we go into those rooms and start speaking with intent and conviction on the things that we believe in, it shifts what they've been going in talking that BS so long, right? Like going in talking, oh, these urban communities or these, they say Black communities when we ain't in the room. You know what I mean? Like they say they're very intent with the way they talk about us when not in the room. But all to say that when we begin to be in a room, what does is it's breaking the system that they created that has helped them on so many different levels, whether it was monetary growth, like, we understand, like a lot of people put money for taxes, things like that. Like philanthropy is something that you can funnel in a lot of ways. And you got people that are doing it from heart, and you got people that are doing it from greed. And they're just trying to literally just put themselves in a position where that they can be okay with however they live. Like they feel bad, but the way that they feel bad for the communities aren't in a system of uplifting. But what I found in Black organizations is that we create the model from understanding pain. We create the model from resilience. We create the model from everything that we had to battle every day of adversity that we face. Like, that's what we create our model. It's like, and what I find is that we're so driven into what we do that we can have the understanding that of these models and these how people look at us, and still go in a room and create everything that we want to create because of how we're embedded in our organizations, and I think that anyone, I tell people all the time, go out and try to do something for your community, get behind something that like follows your heart or whatever. But when you understand that what we're doing is actually shifting change, not normalizing the struggle.
I like
You know,
that.
because philanthropy has been around for a long time. And when I look at our communities and the things that's supposed to help our communities, and I still look at our communities, you know, it's the same way as someone being in a DEI space for 30 years. You know,
That's true.
like
That's
what you been doing? You know what I mean? Have
it's
you been?
not creating systemic change, and having representation, I believe, can help shift the narrative. Even people want to hold on so tight to their narrative. You just being in the room, it changes. It changes the prop. You know, it changes, and they have to see it because they have to see you. I mean, they cannot see you and overlook you, but I think representation is really important. Sadrina, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I think representation is important, but we have to be very careful that it's not, like I said earlier, just strictly performative. You know, that we don't just have that we have the right representation, number one, and you know that we have folks that are not just, you know, black and brown, but actually have a connection directly to the community and are, you know, position to support the work in an authentic way, but also in a way that supports building capacity. So, you know, it's the shift of power that is important just as much as the actual representation. I think there's a question about the community acting as liaisons, and you know, that was something that was a huge part of our conversation when we pulled together this advisory group to discuss ways that philanthropy could be better. In general, we looked at what works across the country and what projects seem to be on track. And participatory grant making is something that some folks in philanthropy are starting to adopt, and that's where it kind of shows up in different ways. But the idea is that the folks who are determining where money goes in their community are directly connected to the work and represent the folks that are going to be most impacted by the work. And so the idea is that from the start of the funding experience all the way to awarding the money, there is weigh-in, there is a contribution. A really good example of this, I just finished serving on an advisory council for the Forward project that MailChimp has. And it was about 12 of us, either nonprofit leaders, consultants, folks that have tons and tons of experience working in organizations and in philanthropy. Largely, not entirely, but largely Black women, because Atlanta, you know, is largely Black, and the work is being done by Black women. So we really wanted to make sure that we were able to have that representation, but also the knowledge base of like what's happening in our city that is not being supported, and what are the organizations that can that we can really focus on. And it was incredible. We were able to support an application process that was not daunting. Again, I said most applications take 200 hours. We were able to support an application process that the applicants indicated was took them an average of 3 hours to complete. That's huge. Right. Yeah. And this was, by the way, for $200,000 in unrestricted funds and $25,000 for strategic support. So it was a big grant that took them on average 3 hours to complete. So that was huge in and of itself, right? And then, you know, beyond that, once you made it to the final round, they awarded everyone at least $5,000 just for participating in the process. So acknowledging that this investment really takes time, I think, is, and that the community's intellectual property, whether they receive, the $200,000 grant or or not is significant. And so really, I think it was huge for MailChimp to take that position. And then the other thing I want to say is that all of that was possible because in Atlanta, Josh Penny is he's kind of the community based like grant manager. He has developed very significant relationships with the organizations and in the community that MailChimp seeks to serve. He himself is a Black man and member of the LGBTQ community, and also, has family. His family owns a restaurant in the metro area. So like really understanding and being, really deeply rooted in the community, as well as making relationships, staying on top of what the needs are, what the community's asking for, is something that he's been doing for years. So he's like a household name. So he was able to handpick us. So I think that's how you create that, first the relationship, and then you identify who are those key folks that can lead that work, and then compensation of the community. How do you compensate? Not just hopefully you'll get a grant. It's like, how do we respect and value the, just the wisdom and wealth and experience that already exist?
And I think that's so strong. Am I echoing? Huh, interesting. Still echoing?
You are. Let everybody hit mute real quick. I'm gonna get some feedback.
Okay. I'm not echoing now. Okay. Sadrina, you talking about value is huge, because when we talk about, and to me, this kind of connects to like community members, going back to where there are these group of women trying so hard to do something for women, and they are childcare needs. They have bills to pay. They have housing to cover. They were sacrificing, they were being educated, and they were sacrificing their own personal time and space, and they didn't have the bandwidth to do so. But imagine if they did have enough money to pay for childcare, to make sure everyone in their house is fed and all their bills are paid, that they had time to take care of themselves and write a grant for others. And we're asking people, like you said, on average, did you say 200 hours?
200 hours, yeah.
And I know I've written some grants, and by the time I've written the grant, like I was in tears when it was denied. Although I knew it could not happen, I didn't think I'd be that vested in it, but you put so much into it. And it's like, I'm just asking for a few cents. And then this whole concept of restricting funding and unrestricted funding, to me, that goes back to value and trust.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're asking, okay, you're going to buy meals and pass them out on Thanksgiving Day. Here's $1,000 to provide those meals. You can only buy food with the money. That's all you can do. You can't pay for your gas. You can't pay for the time that you have brought people in. You expect them to volunteer. You know what? Black folks have volunteered enough. You know what I mean? Like women have volunteered enough. People have. That's all we've done is volunteer enough. And we have organizations in the community, the churches, we have organizations, we have the Greek organizations, we have organizations in the Black community that give to ourselves, but the system hasn't changed. As Wes has mentioned, the system is still the same. Their entities that run after school programs, they still look the same in the dilapidated buildings. Maybe 2 or 3 people rise out of it, but how many more don't? And so I think it's important to engage members by giving them value, giving them education. If you teach somebody how to run a nonprofit, if you teach somebody business, if you teach somebody financial planning, then you are then empowering them to move forward. I shall mute myself. Anyone else can unmute.
No, definitely. Leadership, a lot of things for us we just need to learn and follow up with. But yeah, a lot of us just need to be taught. A lot of us should be compensated, time. It's just a lot of things when you think of philanthropy. I know I started off with my work kind of just trying to find people that truly believed in the mission, that would really be motivated, that would push it out. And then over time, it's like, that's cool and all, but certain people that, you want to pay people for their time. You want to make sure that they're valued as much as well. And I started taking that approach and just making sure, if we do have people, we have our volunteers, but we have leaders that are with us, that are following our mission. How can we make sure that they're taken care of so that they can help keep us moving, and not exhaust them? Because it's a job inside of a job, and you really have to lead with your heart in this type of work. And kind of and see how you can bring value to people all around, not just the people you're serving, but also even the people that's helping you, and I think that if that's what I was getting earlier, was just, those hours of commitment, those hours of time. Like, I feel you, April. We haven't went for grants like that. We're just, I'm learning more about grants and stuff, but just like probably most Black organizations and things, we just, once we find out about them, we tap in. But I've been denied, from some that I just knew that we just aligned so well with. And I know what that time felt like. But here's the kicker. Some of the ones that I would say we haven't went for a lot of grants. So there's only a few major grants we've applied for. Those are the same companies that were very transparent with me in the last year to let me know that most of their funding went to white-led organizations, and it was by choice. And so those two denials that we got that probably crippled us, messed us up, had us emotionally like, man, I know I lied. It made a lot of sense with their transparency. But then, okay, because I add that, what does that do for us as a community, right? Like, that's where we got to be resilient and strong-holded and everything, because like April said, it might have broke our heart, to not get the grant. But could there have been other things in process behind that grant that didn't make it applicable for you? Like, you could have been the best recipient for that grant, but maybe the person that looked at it was just more judgmental of you, and so when I saw that when I heard the company kind of break, like, we didn't go for that grant this year. They're like, oh, apply for it this year. For what? We did it 2 years in a row. Like, if I'm good, like, I don't want you to now I know I'm going, but yeah, like, now what I found is that people are trying to find all the Black organizations they can to fund. You know what I mean? And what does that do? Like, it can help you move, but what are your input on that? Like, for me, I always want things organically and authentic, right? Like, I never want someone to feel like, oh, I haven't been doing this for so long, here you go, right? Like, no, if it wasn't in your heart and in your mission at the beginning, at least for me, coming from where I come from, I don't want the fake shit. You know what I mean? I just don't want the fake shit. Come meet me me and April had this conversation. Come meet me at my grandma's house and have a conversation with me. And then I know it's not fake, right? Like, come into my community. Let's have this conversation. Let's talk about what we're going to build. Let's talk about how we're going to use your funding, because now you want to come to me. If you're just going to give me something, I'm good. And the only reason why I say that is just because I know directly that the perception for people that I serve is always going to be debilitating by someone's lens. And so when it comes to that, it's like, oh, you're not just bringing in books to educate, right? Like, anyone can bring it. No, we're really trying to shift change. And if you want to be involved in that, you can't, we're wellness led. You can't be sitting out there pushing out, something that's not aligned with us, right? So that's what I mean by that. It's just that there's a lot of funding coming to organizations. And what would you guys' advice be for people to be mindful of what aligns with them and what don't, because of the things that happened last year?
Yeah. So I think it's important, especially now, for all the reasons you just expressed, it's important to establish the values of your organization. I mean, sometimes we are so busy just doing the work, trying to get it done. But I think taking a moment of pause and like really organizing, what is the mission? What is the, the goals of the work? is super important. And then you can align with other organizations that are doing that work. I mean, there's lots of ways to build capacity. It's everything's about money, but it's also about like, are we doing the work that we seek to do in the most efficient way? Are we partnering and working collaboratively? There's a lot of duplicated efforts. And so I think once you establish your vision and what your goals are, then the first thing is, okay, who else? What are the other Black-led entities that are doing complementary work that we can align, we can be collective, right? And that's a very natural and normal way for Black folks to lead, is that we do work cooperatively together. And when we're thinking and able and feel we have the resources to do so. I think because it is very much in vogue right now to give to Black folks, I just want to be really clear. Like, I feel like we need to take all the money, but just take all the coins, take them. And like, I am unapologetic about that. Take the money.
But I feel you, April.
Just take all the money. What I will say though, alongside, and I put a link to our recommendations that can be shared freely. We also have an opportunity to shift the process, right? And insist that the folks that are lining up with us are intentional about how they are giving money. We are no longer willing to accept your way to give us money. You should feel honored to give us money because you are going to be a part of this change. And so one of the things that we talk a lot about is blind application process, like a non-identifying, like you get an opportunity to see the work that I do, that my impact, but you don't get to identify me as one organization or another organization. That shouldn't really matter. So that's super important to us. The other thing is that we tell grant makers and funders, before you start throwing around money, go and get to know the community. Ask the community, who's doing the work? Who's doing the work? Not just, what is your perception, from, the 10,000 feet level, like, what is your perception of what needs to be done? Who's actually doing it? There's so many examples of just like folks that live in communities, and in my neighborhood, there's an entire program that helps legacy residents that are in my very gentrified community afford and organize their home repairs. So, and that is an organization that was started by folks that live in this neighborhood, have identified folks with the need, have identified contractors who will do the work at little or no cost, depending upon the circumstances, that exists. So when we are talking about giving money, we have spaces where that money can really go. So I think that it's extremely, extremely important to, for us to not only, consider who we're aligning with in terms of their giving practices, but also we need to push the envelope towards them changing those giving practices and simultaneously take the coins.
I love that. Thank you, Sadrina. Take the coins will be number one key quote from today. There is a question and I want to go back to it. I want to build on something Sadrina said. One thing is know your values of your organization. And I have found that a lot of these organizations start with the greatest of intention. And then when it's time to do that strategic planning, they're like, well, our values are blah, 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 blah. And then they find that their values are not aligned with their own personal values. Mm-hmm. They may think they are, but if there's a misalignment of your personal values to the values of the organization, that's a disconnect. So you might think you have a passion for something, like you might think you have a passion to give food, you want people to eat, but you might not have the passion to cook. You might not have the passion to grocery shop. You might not have a passion for a part of the work that needs to be done that's integral to that organization having success. So big companies bring people around culture, and there's a culture within your organization. So to me, that speaks to get educated, reach out to people that are willing to support you. Sadrina does that. Here in Pittsburgh, I didn't know until we met with my brother's keeper out of the city of Pittsburgh that Pittsburgh has the largest percentage of nonprofits in the country. I had no idea. Wes didn't even.
That's a hustle right there.
Right? Had no idea. And so, one, get educated. Back to the question, there was something else, but we're limited on time, so we'll do this question and then we'll have a little roundabout. But Sadrina, I'm going to say you and I really like this word, sweat equity.
So I saw that come up. I was like, what?
Inside joke. This is we've always been dreamers. I will say that. I want to share a little bit about that, and then I'll give it to Sadrina. One thing I do know when we talk about community members as liaisons, I was initially thinking of when you bring people onto your board, you usually ask board members to, you ask them for a give-get. Either board members are going to give a certain amount of money and it's required, like you give 500, 1,000, 10,000 every year, or they can get something for you. So a board member who might be real grassroots, hands-on, lives in the community, if they don't have the financial means at that time to give, then you can ask them, well, what can we get from you? Maybe then they do the volunteer hours. Maybe they do the outreach. Maybe they do something within the organization that's necessary. Maybe they're a great accountant. Maybe they are a great grant writer. Maybe they are the ones that have the passion to cook the food or shop. But those are ways that you can ask people for some sweat equity on the front end to support the organization. Sadrina, did you have anything on sweat equity?
Yeah, I mean, I think that first I want to acknowledge that a good bit of the work that's being done is being done either not by folks that are volunteering, not being compensated at all, or very, very little underpaid. And so there's a lot of sweat equity happening, and it has tremendous value. And so, one of the things that I really encourage folks to think about is it's the way that it is. And, we all, do things because we're passionate about it. But the only way to make work sustainable is to make sure that folks are being compensated so that they can stay focused on the work. And so I think any effort needs to have a trajectory that includes fair compensation for folks that are, on the grounds, doing good things. That being said, yeah, I mean, I think, as you said, April, the board structure really should, there should be equal value placed on those who are network builders, those who can give directly themselves, and then also, those who have relationships within the community. I can tell you hands down that the funders that I've talked to, that's the point. They know that's more important than any, application process that they can create. One quick thing I wanted to mention, because I think it's something that is uncomfortable to discuss about philanthropy, is that, we talk about grants, we talk about corporate giving, but the vast majority of nonprofit dollars that are available are foundations, family foundations. And what happens a lot, like in Atlanta, we have the community foundation. So you have smaller family foundations that then are contributing to a larger fund. And it's a great idea. But the reality is that those folks may or may not even have any real intention or value in mind when it comes to making change in communities. They're really just trying to lower their taxes, you know? And so some of this is like understanding that, as our conversation has really been around, okay, if you're trying to do good work in the community and you're a funder, you know, you need to talk to these people, but we also need to recognize that that's not the goal always. So we have to really consider, okay, how do we hold these people that are getting tremendous, incredible benefit, you know, by setting up these foundations? How do we make sure that we tap into that and we hold them accountable for, you know, the tax benefits and resources that they're able to increase because they're putting their money strategically in certain spaces.
Yeah, I like that. And I appreciate you, Sadrina, for really diving into this core of systemic change. Because the way that philanthropy has been going for many years, I'd submit it's been leaning on that, like, oh, we're going to get taxed if we don't have so much in charitable giving. If we don't get off of some of these coins, we'll get taxed. We don't want to get taxed. So how do we keep our money? Oh, let's donate. Let's donate. I don't care. Just donate. And so really holding people accountable. And when you said, you know, get your boots on the ground, Wes always says his grandmother's 90, she's in her 90s. She lives, you know, in the hood in Kansas City. Walk down the street, meet him at his grandmother's house, and let's talk about the work that needs to be done, as opposed to necessarily giving it to the big organizations. We have a huge hospital system in Pittsburgh. It's a nonprofit. It's like the biggest hospital system here in Pittsburgh. It's nonprofit. They're getting millions of dollars.
Definitely.
We are not.
A lot of, but that's, you know, I've taken a lot of notes too, you know, just from this conversation. I definitely have. Feel like this is what it's about. We learn from each other. We all have great information, and if we share it together, we can grow. So a lot of this information is amazing for me. But well, as you know, just like what April was just saying, there's just so much that we can tap into if we change the perception. Like, of course, like my perception going in, like, yeah, it's their fault, you know, they just eating us up, you know, in a sense. But even through this conversation, my perception has changed. You know, it's like, you know, even just the last few words of holding them accountable. You know, people in my mind, I'm like, oh, people starting these organizations, they doing all this stuff, and they're not really doing the good. But are they not just doing the good because no one's holding them accountable, right? Like, and so, and that's the power. It's like, and then you either cripple an organization or it grows, right? By you holding them accountable. But until someone's held accountable, they can go and take advantage for so long, right? And so that is one of the biggest things I've learned. It's like just going in, seeing what aligns, seeing what people are doing, seeing their mission, seeing those things. And are they doing that, right? And then hold them accountable to those initiatives. And I see so much of like what they're getting in funding and things, like seeing if they're actually serving, are they actually doing the work? And if they're not, then hold them accountable to do the work. And that eventually shifts change. And I know that just from a personal, you know, aspect, but that's what I took from y'all today. It's just that, you know, you go in and get the coins, but you hold on, get the coins, but make sure that you hold people accountable so that they understand that you see their vision and you want to see it through. And that's what I get.
I would like to share, Sadrina posted where she works, civicatlanta.org, their website there. You can find her on the website. And if you like to connect with her, you can connect with her via there. I put in Disabled But Not Really, which is Wes's nonprofit. And then Wes and I have collaborated together, and we have our open spaces with Open Up Pittsburgh. So we put the link there. Feel free on Giving Tuesday to do your process of philanthropy and you know, support us, because we are really trying to do the work to uplift others and uplift ourselves. Education is key. I'm also going to put in a link. Boom. Sadrina curated a Spotify playlist.
Yes.
Do it. It's called Inequality in Philanthropy. It is quite a good playlist. So Drina, learn how to
Okay.
delegate people, learn how to take care of your business and have a community help you. So her name isn't on the playlist, but she helped curate, the list, and there are over, I
Love
think,
it.
50 songs.
Yeah.
Empower yourself, you guys, and educate yourselves. And you know what? Use your resources. Like, Sabrina is a wealth of knowledge. And when we talk about how do you hold people accountable, how do you break systems, how do you walk in this space, learn from those who are walking in this space. Wes has been walking in this space, rolling in this space,
Hey.
and I have too, and recognize that we're not a monolith, but we are a reflection of society. You all see the hue of our skin. You see, we're disabled. You see that we have abilities in different ways. We've all been really oppressed in this structure, and we're ready for a big change. So, Gina, do you have any closing words? And then Wes and I will have a quick question after that.
I would just encourage folks, definitely give to Black work, and specifically, sounds like the work that you guys are doing through Open Up Pittsburgh needs, just support. And I think that is a very appropriate avenue, so we can continue to have these types of conversations. And just no amount is too small. We've been talking about big philanthropy, but the truth of the matter is, like April, you started this by saying that Black folks give in terms of we're the largest subgroup of people, we give the most, in comparison to what we make and what our resources and what we have access to. And so the reality is we're already doing that. But knowing that we can be more intentional, we can drive the way that communities are impacted by making sure that we give directly to Black-led work. We don't have to donate, to a United Way. That's wonderful. They do really great work, but it's not necessary, And so I just would really encourage people to just be mindful of their giving, and if you have match opportunities at your companies, it's another way to really get involved in the conversation and help lead what your organization or your entity is doing. And as far as giving is concerned, say, hey, we've got this really great org that we want our company to follow. Open Up Pittsburgh. Let's start a campaign within a match campaign within our company, so that the work can be supported.
I like that.
That's an idea.
That's a good idea. And we all have a voice. I think it speaks to you having a voice. You might think you're a cog in the wheel at whatever company you work at, but you know what? You have a voice. You have your interests. You know what you hope and see, you want to see in the community. So yeah,
right.
That's how you hold people accountable. So we usually kind of we went a little bit past our hour, but part of this whole conversation too is to show that, hey, we are survivors and we're thrivers, and we have our own, we've elevated our own selves. We've come a long way. And so what are the practices that you've been doing? What are the books you've been reading, podcasts you've been listening, music practices you've been doing lately, Sadrina, to support yourself?
Oh, wow. I'll be honest. I that playlist that you listed has been that was a very. I mean, I actually pulled together every single one of those songs. I spent days on it, and it was a healing experience for me. I'm like, there's so much music and so much creativity and beauty in Black women that has been there the whole time. So collecting that was a wonderful healing experience for me. And honestly, Adele's album that just got released is incredible. And just
listen to it. I haven't listened to it yet.
It's so good. So I've been music lately more so than reading. I've been listening.
I like that. Ooh, thanks for sharing that. So I put her playlist in the link there. I listened to it too. I facilitated that wonderful talk. And I'll have to listen to Adele's new album. You're the second or third person that said that.
So good. Definitely.
Wes, what about you?
Right now, trying to get into Will Smith's book.
All right.
I know that I said trying to.
Yes, you did. I keyed in on that.
As a very, very like admirer of Will Smith, like I see his truth being spoken a little bit differently at the beginning. It's good, but I know that he could have came a little bit more real. And not saying that it was bad. I just feel like, just another writer. It just sounds like it. And so it's not, but I'm trying to get into it because the stories and the motivation within it is very impactful. So get away from like, what the writer did, but also go into the story. And I'm big on reading. So that's why I had to add that. So people know I'm not, because somebody like, oh man, what's had me read this book? And it wasn't even, no, it's getting there.
Okay.
But outside of that, I've been music. So it's funny because like I'm a big Kanye West fan, right? And I am. And he always had to reference to understanding that he went through struggle. He's been through a lot. So his new CD, his new disc or whatever, has a song called Come to Life. And I don't know, every time I listen to it, I'm full of joy. Every morning I listen to it. I even told my mom to start listening to it. It's just, you're just letting your dreams come to life and how much you believe in them. And it's so uplifting for me that I think that is one, every day because I get emotional, and it's hard for me to get emotional because I'm like, but it never fails. Like I was telling my mom about the song yesterday headed to the airport, and we both got emotional as I'm just sharing why that song has such an impact on me,
Yeah.
and so right outside of the book, that song, literally I was on the airplane. My mom texted me like, listening to the song now, and I'm like, this is where it's at. So again, it's something about when you can understand someone and where they've been through or the words that they're trying to put out, you relate so much. And I've just embodied that song in a way that it's like my uplift every day. Uplift. Like,
I got it.
Yeah.
I think add that to Sadrina's playlist. Add it to the queue. Well, thank you guys. I'm still, I downloaded Will Smith's biography, so I'm glad you shared that along with some others. And I'm on a mission. I think I have 4 hours left of Obama's biography. And I really like it. I've been telling people, if you haven't read his other books, definitely read his other books. So this is truly like a presidential biography, a lot of historical facts, things that I'm super interested in. I was a history major. But yeah, that's what I've been on now. But now I think I'm gonna put on the playlist and start dancing a lot. Feed my soul, right? Get out of our heads so much. So thank you so much, you guys. Sadrina, thank you. I can't tell you enough how much we appreciate having you here.
My pleasure. I love starting my Sunday this way. This is great.
Yeah, that's what we kind of want, a little Soul Sunday. So we've shared with you guys where you can connect with her. Wes and I have a newsletter that's going to start coming out. If you're interested in being on that list, let us know. Thank you to our friends who chatted with us today. We really, really, really appreciate it. And, we got Atlanta in the house. We got Kansas City in the house, but he's actually near the beach somewhere else.
Always.
Pittsburgh in the house, get some sun for me, you guys, because it's not sunny today. And as always, we appreciate you,
April.
guys.
And
You're
Amy.
welcome.
Thank you, Amy. We appreciate you as always.
Love. Yes. So have a wonderful week, a wonderful Sunday. I look forward to forwarding the conversation. Takeaway, get these coins, y'all.
And hold them accountable.
Hold them accountable. Yes. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us and listening to the podcast. If you would like more information on the guests and the stories that you've heard today, and to hear stories from others, subscribe to the podcast. We also invite you to subscribe to Open Up Pittsburgh's newsletter, as well as our YouTube channel. We want you all to take care, and remember to make your own stories. This is April. Peace.